Welcome to Fatherhood for the Rest of Us with Brandon Handley. Because you're already great at everything else, why not fatherhood too?
Hey there, and welcome to Fatherhood for the Rest of Us. This is Brandon Handley. I am the creator and founder of Fatherhood for the Rest of Us. I want to say thank you for choosing to spend your time with me today on Fatherhood for the Rest of Us. I also want to just encourage you, if you could, to go over to the podcast on iTunes, download it, subscribe to it, and leave a review if you have found any part of this at all to have an impact on your life. That will help others to find the show and listen to it and get the same type of enjoyment that you are out of it. Also, if you are a father and if you're looking for a place that you can go celebrate fatherhood or perhaps even share some struggles and get some advice or find some like-minded men, I strongly encourage you to stumble on over to Fatherhood for the Rest of Us, the private Facebook group, and ask to join. I'll let you right in. That's going to do it for right now, guys. And please stay tuned for today's podcast. Hey there, Fatherhood for the Rest of Us. It is Brandon Handley, the creator, the founder of Fatherhood for the Rest of Us, the voice of a generation. Today, I am thrilled to be able to bring to you the one and only, I'm sure there's many others, but the Bruce Malcolm that I'm bringing to you today is the founder of an idea and the owner of PurposeFire.org. He has this product that he calls FIRE, Fortified Identity and Rapid Engagement, in which he can help you find your purpose in unbelievably like 13 minutes, 15 minutes. I sub 15 minutes. It's a pretty amazing process, and then as a coach, help you guide you to your purpose. So he calls it FIRE, Transformation Through Purpose. In our conversation, we cover a whole, as always, when you're talking parenting and coaching and in this space, everybody has a slightly different approach to it, which is the beauty of life. We talk about definitely purpose. We talk about the difference between discipline and punishment. And Bruce was really awesome in guiding me through a scenario that had happened the same day, and that was really cool. And he also talks about the three fear bears. So I want you to also catch how Legos and Barbie dolls can play a much more important role than you'd think about raising your children and being with them. So for now, I bid you adieu, and I do hope that you enjoy this episode of Fatherhood for the Rest of Us. Perfect. All right. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hey there, Fatherhood for the Rest of Us. I am on here today with Bruce Malcolm. He has a master's degree in counseling psychology and has practiced as a mental health clinician for children for over 6 years. Additionally, Bruce is a part-time psychology faculty member at Azusa Pacific University and Victor Valley College. Bruce works as a personal coach, helping adults understand how to utilize their purpose to improve their relationships and propel their lives towards doing what they are meant to do. Bruce, I'm excited to have you on here today. It is Sunday morning, and you have joined me at 6 a.m. Thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's do this, man.
Absolutely. So before we even get started, I just want to ask, what kind of you have a lot of awesome things going on. You and I talked before this. What would you like to celebrate today with the audience?
Dang, what would I like to celebrate? I've got some tools that tend to set people free, give some insights on our kids. And that's what I'm hoping to get to share with the world today.
Awesome. Well, I want to let everybody know how you and I connected. We connected in the Fatherhood for the Rest of Us Facebook group. You reached out to me, and you let me know. You're like, hey, I got a little exercise for you, and do you mind if I reach out to you? And I was like, what's this guy's spiel? All right, what the hell? I was like, I'm down for anything.
What's he selling?
What's he selling? Right, exactly. But instead of like a what's he selling, we did like a find your purpose in like 10 minutes or less. It was like, and then we just had this amazing conversation and how you were kind of able to direct my purpose or discover my purpose. I was like, we got to share this, dude. How can we share this? And
Mm,
that's kind of how we connected. Um,
mhm.
why don't we? Can we? What do we need to talk about there? Can we talk about what exactly it is? Can we talk about? I'm gonna just say, can we talk about fire? What does that mean, and move forward from there?
Dude, we could totally talk about fire.
Awesome. Let's talk
Um,
about fire. I
okay.
burnt my room down when I was 4. So
Did you
fires.
really?
Yeah, it really did.
Dude, you have a better fire story than me.
Yours helps people though. Mine was not helpful. But so when we talk about fire, what are we talking about, Bruce?
Okay. Well, why don't I tell the story of how it happened?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, so you mentioned I work part-time at Victor Valley College. I was awarded a grant to help students find their purpose. And it came about because I teach in the same community college. I teach at a couple schools, but one of them is the community college that I sat in when I was 18. And I just remember what it felt like to be a student there and how I had no idea at that time where I was going, what my life might look like at the age I am now, um, which is 20 years later, if you want to do the math. So, um, anyway, so I got this grant to help students find their purpose. And as I started doing research in this, I started assigning my students this paper where, all right, what is your purpose? And the students that were able to bring it home, the ones that were able to really articulate in a way that mattered, always brought it back to an unmet childhood need, or some kind of trauma. So I'm all about simplicity, so if I'm going to give you a tool, it's got to be easy to use and you got to be able to hit the ground running with it. So I figured if I could come up with a list of unmet needs and just put that in a thesaurus, I'd be able to really quickly and easily help someone find their purpose. Well, it turned out that all behavior in humanity is an attempt to meet a need. And so you can find your motivation for life or your kids' motivation for life, just on this little chart. And that's what you're talking about is the fire chart.
Right, right.
Um, so FIRE stands for fortified identity. In other words, when I really strongly identify with who I am at my most authentic self, um, rapid engagement, I'm able to very quickly and easily use that authenticity to connect to other people. And if I'm connecting with other people, then I'm able to go pursue occupations and relationships and empower my kids to do the same. Um, and that's where that whole when I say sets people free, that's what sets people free because they're able to see, okay, this is who I am, or this whole thing that I really didn't like about myself, it turns out that it can actually be really beautiful.
Right, right. I think a lot of people out there are familiar with Ryan Holiday's "The Obstacle Is the Way." I'm not sure if you are.
Okay,
It's
I'm
kind of a
not.
stoicism book. But I think that I could look at this in that context, right? So, if we talk about which so if I'm usually looking at this document, are we going to be able to share this, Bruce, on the site? Like after, is there anything that we'd be able to share
Well, we
this?
can't share the whole document
Okay, okay,
until it gets published,
right,
and of
right,
course that's
okay,
in the works. But I'm
sure.
happy to talk about those, because
So
there's 17 categories of purpose, and that's the document you're talking about.
okay, yeah,
Um, but there's three major categories, and we
right.
can totally talk about those. And then if someone wants to find their subcategory, they can give me a call.
Right on, absolutely, absolutely. So, I mean, if I look at this document, and when you and I did it, we kind of we looked at it. We go through a couple of our fear sets, right?
Yeah,
Um, are these the 3 fear bears that you're
sure.
referencing,
Well, okay, hold on. Now,
or is there? I got it
okay, so
jumbled.
let's just talk about the three categories of purpose because that's
Sure,
really
let's do
the
it. Let's do
juice
it.
of it. Okay.
Absolutely.
Um, the three categories of purpose are also three personality types. Okay,
Okay.
so the first category is acceptance, the second is safety, and the third is significance. And those are three very different and almost conflicted strengths. So individuals and I'm acceptance. So what acceptance means is people value sharing, partnering, coming together, inclusion, teamwork. Let's do this together. You're not going to be alone. I accept you exactly who you are. And you know what? We're going to partner together and we're going to do this.
Right.
Okay. Safety values more than anything else. More than anything else, they value safety, protection, security, consistency, dependability. All those words.
Right.
Just think those are the people that get to feelings last, and they start with truth.
Okay.
Okay, now I have to tell you this, and it's gonna hurt, but feelings don't matter. We may never get to those. Okay.
I knew it.
So, and you knew it. And you can see just right away how those two can be conflicted. Okay.
Right.
How if I am living in my strengths as acceptance and I'm including somebody,
Right.
that may not look safe to somebody else. Okay.
Right. Okay.
And then the last category, which is where you fall, is
Mhm.
significance. And that is where we value the importance of the individual. And so that person would go up to someone and say, hey, let me tell you what I value about you. And you may not be aware of this, but you are really good at, fill in the blank with what this category is.
Right.
And essentially they're using those words or those actions to empower somebody else to be significant.
Right.
Okay.
Well, now, how do we get to our strengths, Bruce?
Like, how do we find out where we are?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we're only going to talk about these three. So, any argument that you've ever had or any trauma you've ever faced, your reaction to it is based on your purpose. Okay, that's for all people. And so everyone is going to fit into one of those three categories, and the feelings related to it, because we have a heart to see the opposite of that in the world. Again, that's where that purpose piece comes in. Is going to be found in the feelings associated with our purpose. So the opposite of all those three categories that I just mentioned are insignificant, unsafe, and excluded. So if you can identify a really big argument that you've had, or a trauma, a conflict, anything like that, and you just plug in, did I feel in that moment excluded, like I was being left out, abandoned, or alone? Did I feel unsafe? And unsafe is like deceived, ripped off, or just terribly vulnerable. Or did I feel insignificant? Insignificant is unimportant, faulty, or just not special.
All right.
And so if you're able to resonate with one of those categories, then you can really understand by flipping it into its opposite, the heart that you have for the world.
Right.
I hope that's clear as mud.
No,
Again, we're doing this just on audio.
Yeah, no.
Normally I can actually show someone a worksheet.
Yeah, no. So, but when we did this, we went through it, and I found that my I felt my arguments came from insignificant. And going through this, you're like, all right, well, when you're having an argument, look at, say, if you feel like you're being insignificant, if you're getting ready to argue that, instead of arguing, you're making me feel insignificant side, I want to do what?
Okay, so I mean, again, these are opposites.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're feeling insignificant, well, the reason you're feeling that has nothing to do with actually what's going on around. Okay, so if you and I both went through the same trauma because we're in different categories,
Mm-hmm.
we're going to perceive the same exact trauma very differently based on our heart for the world. So if you're feeling insignificant, it is not because you're insignificant. It's because you've got this really big, I don't know, a trigger. Anytime there's a hint of insignificance, right?
Right.
You're going to jump to that because you have a heart for seeing significance, making sure people are heard and understand their value. So the traditional way is, you can go to therapy for 10 years and people can tell you how significant you are, and you can work on filling those voids. Or now I just mentioned the word therapy, and we got to be careful about that, because if you're having issues of insignificance that are so big that is keeping you from, staying employed or married or, any of those things, then you should consider counseling.
Right. If it's having a severe impact on your life.
That's exactly right. But if you're in an argument and you're trying to find grounding in that,
Mm-hmm.
then the tool is to impart significance to your partner.
How does that look? Yeah. How does that look?
So, well, I'm going to tell you, you would have to tell me how that looks, because that's your strength. I mean, the whole thing with fire is, I don't want you to be like me. I want you to be more authentic and more like you.
Right. So I mean, like,
And
so my question is like, if I'm for some reason having a conversation, for example, with my wife, and for some reason I feel like um I'm feeling like I don't know, worthless or inferior or something like that.
mhm,
Instead of like buckling down and being like, oh, you're making me feel so this way. Instead, don't I want to
mhm,
flip that around and say, you know what,
that's
flip it
exactly
around,
right.
right, and show them
Mhm,
that they are significant in some way, because this is we talked about it, and it was actually very clear to me when we talked about it, but as soon as I hung up the
mhm.
phone, I was like, wait a second, what do I do?
Okay. Okay. So you're sharing your subcategory, and that's fine. So your subcategory is that um, when you get rocked, you interpret that whatever happened as I'm worthless or I'm useless.
Hmm.
Okay, and the opposite of worthless or uselessness is helpfulness
Yeah.
and usefulness. And so if when you're being let's just say the perception is you're being attacked within your relationship, is in that moment to impart, now this is specifically for you,
Right.
specifically for
Right. Yeah. Absolutely.
significance,
Yep.
is to impart significance and value to your spouse. um, and that may look like being helpful, that helpfulness is about doing.
Right.
So that may look like, um, wow, I'm really feeling rock right now, I need to do the dishes for you.
Okay.
or
Okay.
or I'm feeling rock right now, and again, you have to build this into your own strengths and your own relationship and your own tools that you have.
Right.
um, but if you can in that moment become helpful or become useful,
Right.
then it's no longer about character. Okay. Now it's about love.
Okay.
um, um, because do we want to be known for I need to be significant, or do we want to be known for who I am, impart significance into other people?
Right. Yeah. That's what I love. I love. Yeah. This. I'm back to the place where I remember this is awesome.
Okay.
Because we did this, Bruce. When you and I did it again, guys. For anybody who's listening, we did this. Arrived at a spot. He and I arrived at a spot in about 10-15 minutes, and then we had a really nice, awesome conversation. And I was like, "This is awesome. This is amazing," and it really is. But one of the other things I wanted to bring up too is Bruce. How did you become involved in your field? And I love your story about how you went to night school for 10 years. And
um,
because that's dedication.
that's some dedication. um, so I went to a party with my wife, and she connected with an old friend from when she was a kid, and we just started talking, and I asked him what he did, and he said he worked with kids and that he got to use things like Legos and I mean, doing essentially whatever it took to meet the need of a kid.
Right.
And I was like, I have to do this. And so I started going to school at night. And like you said, it took 10 years.
Yeah.
So I sold copy machines during the day.
Right.
And then eventually I'd progressed enough into my career where I was able to step into that,
Right.
step into counseling kids full time.
Okay.
Um, and I'm going to tell you, it's a unique interview when you can sit in front of a panel of people who are fielding you out among 100 other candidates, and you can say, so 10 years ago I went to school so that I could sit here in this moment
Yeah.
today.
That's great. No, that's great.
um,
Um,
yeah.
and I bring that up because I'm reminded of a podcast I heard once where the guy says to another gentleman, if you could do whatever you want to do with your life in 5 years, would you do it? And most people jump and they say, absolutely. Right. And then he goes,
Yeah.
well, what if it took you 10 years? And there's a little more hesitation because people are
Yeah.
like, I don't know about 10 years. And then the final one is like 15 years. And everybody's like, that seems like it's kind of out of place. I mean, you're right in the middle there. But the gist of it is that time's going to pass one way or another. Wouldn't you rather at some point in your life be doing what you love, no matter what kind of the time and dedication it took? And you took 10 years to get to a place where you are now, and you're
Yeah.
pretty excited to be there.
Dude, it's a pretty exciting place to be. It really is.
Absolutely, absolutely. So I just I think that's inspirational. It inspires me personally. So so
Mhm.
thank you for being an inspiration just in terms of putting that time and dedication in. Um, and
Well,
I hope.
thank you for saying so.
Yeah,
At the
man.
time, it just felt like work.
It always does, but I mean, that's that sometimes that work is those are the gems, right? Sometimes
Mm,
when we look back, we're like, hey, that 10 years, that was awesome. And so we're on to what's next.
yeah,
But I just want to let people know a little bit about that backstory because again, I think it's inspirational, and
yeah, absolutely.
you're where you want to be now, and you're kind of charging forward now. And that's great. You've got a great question, I think, is what is the difference between discipline and punishment? I know this is something that I kick around in the Fatherhood for the Rest of Us Facebook group often. But what is
Mhm.
your perception of that?
Okay, well, discipline grows the character of my kids. So discipline is about their character. Punishment is me trying to either get even or get empathy
Hmm.
from them,
Hmm.
and that's about my character.
Okay.
So as I, so as one of my kids experiences a character issue, if I can provide discipline, I can do that with love, and I can do that with support. Again, I'm going to say the word support because that's what I'm all about. That's my purpose. Um, but I can also encourage them to bring out their strengths, and encourage them to grow in who they are.
Hmm.
And punishment, it doesn't get any of that accomplished. Punishment just teaches when dad gets mad, he gets angry.
It's true. It's true, guys. That when dad gets mad, he just gets angry, and um,
Right. And
y-
I want to clarify because there is a place for anger in parenting. Um, there there absolutely is. My kids need to understand that if they're going to hurt somebody,
right.
that that discipline is going to involve anger, and that's okay. You
Okay.
know, a lot of parents will come to me and say, "But I yelled at my children. I know you're going to tell me not to." I'm not going to tell you not to yell at your kids.
Well, that's great because
If
I did
my
that right before we came out here.
Good for you, man.
Well, I don't know if it was, and I guess I would ask you this question,
Yeah.
so here I'll give you an example this morning, and I'm curious to know whether or not I disciplined them or if I punished them. Can we
Let's find
distinguish
out,
that?
man.
Let's
I mean,
distinguish that. This is fun.
I'm not going to put myself out of, I don't know what of an expert I am, but I'll
Yeah,
give you
yeah. I'm
opinion.
curious. I mean, so the two of my boys are fighting over a sleeping bag,
Mhm.
and they can't seem to get it together. They've been given. I said, you guys need to figure it out. You need to stop fighting over it. Otherwise, you don't get to keep it, right? And
Mhm.
I try really hard to phrase things, and I'll rephrase things until it makes it sound like I'm positively encouraging them to do good, right? So instead of me saying, uh, keep doing if you can't figure it out, I'm going to take it. Instead of saying that, usually what I'll say to them is if you can figure it out, you get to keep it, right?
Mhm.
So I really try hard to phrase it that way so that whatever their good behavior is also going to receive good outcome.
Mhm.
And then finally, if they couldn't figure it out, I walked up the store. And actually, at one point, I told them to throw it away if they didn't do that. And my wife interceded then. But then
Okay.
finally, and because that I know that's bad. I don't want them to have that kind of like trauma. But then
Right.
it got to the point where I was like, you know what? They couldn't figure it out. I just walked up and I took it. And I was like, you guys can't figure it out right now. I'm gonna take it away for now. So is that discipline or
Mhm.
punishment?
How old are your boys?
5 and 7.
Okay. So 5 and 7, they're still okay. There's a difference between concrete thinking and abstract thinking.
Okay.
Okay. Abstract is teenage level. That's where you can say, "Hey, do you know how you did this? And this is how you could have done it differently." Okay. Concrete, they need more. This is what you did. Here's the consequence. Um, I think I would again. I'm about simplicity,
Hmm.
because if it can be simple enough for kids to understand it and it gets repeated enough, then they're able to. Okay, now I see what I did wrong. My family, so we're the Malcolms. We have something called the Malcolm family rule,
Okay.
and the Malcolm family rule is we love each other.
Okay.
And uh, the biggest thing that a kid can do wrong in the Malcolm family is to do something that's unloving towards another individual. Um, and so if I have two kids fighting over a sleeping bag, is either one of them being loving?
Hmm.
Probably not. Okay. So then the discipline becomes, were you being loving in that? Okay. If you weren't being loving in that, okay, so we're going to have to look at a timeout. We're going to have to look at, and you got to discipline each one of your kids differently because they're going to respond to different disciplines based on what their strengths are. But um, so if you took it away out of anger, that's punishment. If you took it away to build their character, if you took it away because you have a heart for your kids and you want to see them giving sleeping bags to the homeless, I don't know, we'll carry that out to its furthest extent.
Sure.
Then you're disciplining them.
Okay. Well,
I
I
don't know
think
if
I think it was a little bit of both, Bruce.
okay.
So
Now I'm gonna
it starts off definitely with like, listen, I want them. It comes from a place of complete from the heart, and then after like a half hour goes by, then it doesn't come from the heart anymore.
dude, still it's a half hour later, guys.
Yeah.
Come on.
Right. So and I think and I wouldn't even call it I wouldn't call it anger so much as like just frustration. Uh,
Yeah.
but I think
Yeah.
that I can see how it leans. It might have leaned a little bit more towards punishment on my end, and I appreciate that, and that's
Okay.
okay. So, okay,
Yeah.
I get that.
Now,
That's
I mean, the other missing piece from it is if we know what our kids' purpose is,
hmm
then we can build them up in that because again, purpose is either going to be out of love
right.
or it's going to be out of fear,
Okay.
um, and it's going to exhibit itself no matter what. Okay,
hmm
so if let's say one of you, okay, let's say both of your kids are significant. Okay,
hmm
so what they're doing in that moment is they're trying to make each other feel insignificant.
mm
Okay, so the way that you would build them up in purpose is individually you take them aside, and I don't know where your kids are, they could be significance, safety, or acceptance. They're
Right.
one of
Right.
the three.
Right.
And then to say, hey, this thing that you're doing, dude, it's not who you are.
Right.
And then you build them up in something that you saw that was the opposite of that.
Right.
So do you remember that time that you gave your brother your sleeping bag?
Yeah.
Dude, that's who you are.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then what you're doing is you're taking that moment, and instead of having to bust into some bigger tools, okay,
Right.
which are more fear based, which are more punishment based,
Yeah.
you reinforce it with positive.
That's
You
great.
remember that time that I mean, I'll never forget, when my daughter, she was 2 years old. We went to go visit my grandpa who had had a stroke, and um, the nurse came in and brought him a cup of water and said, "You have to drink this whole thing." And so he drank it, but because of his stroke, he started coughing it up.
Uh huh.
She went at 2 years old. She went over and she put her little hand on his and said, "It's okay, Pop. Sometimes I don't drink all of my water either."
Oh.
See, when my daughter is acting in opposite of that, I mean, she's heard me tell her that story. I mean, she's 13 now. She doesn't remember it, but
Ah,
she's heard me tell that story of her again and again and again. Because if she's acting in opposite of that, if she's not being kind and compassionate, and I know that's who she is at her heart,
right.
I know that is the adult that she is going to be. Um, if she's not acting in that, then I can reinforce it. Do you remember that time that you
Right.
put your hand on Pop's hand and you
Right.
said, "It is okay. I don't drink my water either"? Dude, that's who you are.
Right.
This whole argument you're having with your brother, can you tell me, are you being compassionate right now? Do you have a heart of telling him it is okay? I'm going to go through this with you. Does that make sense?
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And then in that moment, you just created, I mean, an impacting lifelong moment right there in the middle over sleeping bags.
Right. I don't know. I didn't this morning, but
Yeah.
I have the opportunity to do that, and that's I think that's we I know that I do. I don't know, and I feel like a lot of fathers, a lot of parents do. Like we look for those opportunities to provide life lessons or life impacting
Yeah.
lessons to say, hey, listen, um, again to provide those life impacting lessons. Now, a question of mine though would be. I You often hear about like people assigning you identity, right? How does that
Mm-hmm.
play in this situation, right? So if we feel like we recognize their purpose and then we keep reinforcing it, are we also assigning them an identity?
Well, okay, so when we looked at your purpose
hmm
and we saw that helpfulness and usefulness and imparting value to others,
Yeah.
did that feel like I was pointing, that I was assigning something to
No,
you,
no, no,
or
no.
that I was,
No, no.
or
I
that,
felt great,
no, no,
man.
I
I was
just
like,
want you, just, that's exactly right. Okay. It felt validating, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So if you, because you're their parent and you've seen them at their absolute worst and
Right,
you've seen them at their absolute best.
right.
And so all you're doing is reinforcing the best that you already see.
Okay, yeah.
I mean, for adults, we call it purpose. For kids, we call it their superpower.
Okay,
Um, and the more you reinforce it, the more they learn, okay, this is my identity.
yeah.
um, you know, I'll tell you a story about, I have two students this semester who are both safety, and they're both safety in the way that they value the truth more than anything else. If you think of, okay, it's similar to Simon from American Idol. Okay,
Right,
so someone does something terrible, he's going to let them know about it. Well, over a lifespan, if somebody has that strength has actually caused them pain, because they've had to tell the truth to people
right.
who didn't necessarily have a positive reaction to that. Okay.
Yes.
And so they have this belief that there's this piece of me that's really, whatever word they want to attribute to it, mean or unkind, or um, that's not okay.
Right,
And so one of these students, the homework is, with this fire business, in order to actually see it, you got to practice it.
right.
So you reach out to someone who rocks you, and you live your purpose in that conversation. Um, and so this individual reached out to a friend of his that they stopped talking because the friend insulted his family member. And he's like, you know what? If I tell him the truth, he's just going to stop being my friend anyway. So I'm going to stop talking to him.
Huh.
So he called up his buddy and said, listen, man, do you remember that time that you insulted my family? Like, I haven't talked to you again since, because, I'm not okay with someone talking about my family like that.
Right.
And the buddy was like, "Oh my gosh, I didn't know that's what."
Yeah.
I'm so sorry.
Just
The
tell
buddy
me.
didn't even know. Yeah,
Right. Yeah.
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 Um, and so what that activity did is it reinforced, okay, no, this piece of me,
Yeah.
um, is actually good, and it can be used not to just, not to just tell people the truth and they'd never talk to me again, but it can actually be used to restore relationship.
Right.
Which is at the heart of fire.
I love it.
So back to your question, does reinforcing a kid project something on them?
Right.
If you have the wrong purpose, yes,
Sure.
it does.
Okay.
And you can tell, because if you tell somebody to act in love in an area of purpose that's not theirs, it just provokes anxiety.
Okay. Okay.
So if every time you're saying, dude, you're so special, um, they get really nervous,
Right.
okay, well, we have the wrong purpose.
Okay. Okay. No, no, good. I think it's a concern of mine, right? Like I don't want to assign an identity to my children and
Yeah,
try to force them down a path that isn't theirs.
yeah,
Yeah. So
yeah.
I love it all, guys. So I'm gonna flip it over into a little bit of fatherhood stuff too from here, Bruce.
Okay.
But before I do that, when somebody goes to your website and is looking for coaching, what kind of coaching are you offering?
Quick and easy is what I'm going to say.
Hmm.
Fireworks really quickly,
Hmm.
because you're already living your strengths. And so all I do when you give me a call is I walk you through a worksheet,
Hmm.
and then you tell me, okay, so what are some times that you were helpful and useful,
Right.
so
Right.
the individual is able to relate to that. And then
Right.
they realize, okay, wow, I didn't know that was my greatest strength.
Right.
I didn't realize that was my purpose.
Okay.
And so then I give them assignments to go live it. Um, and the outcome is, I mean, it tends to be pretty quick and pretty powerful.
Yeah.
Because what you do is you're taking, we have all these character traits, and we're like, I don't know what I need to be doing for work. I don't know how I need to be living my family with these traits. And
Yeah.
it just really hones it down to the very best part of you and empowers you to go use that in the world. So, I mean, the stories of people that go through it are, I use the word powerful, and I'll probably say it a lot, but they're powerful, and they're transformative.
Yeah. That's great.
Um, I mean, there's one guy that was a personal trainer at a gym, and he was miserable, um, because he had all these really creative ideas. And what if we offered this class? And he just got turned down again and again and again. Um, and we walked him through fire, and he was able to see like, okay, no, I'm getting upset at this because I've got this energy that I need to get out. I need to be able to help people.
Right.
And he quit.
Ah,
And I was like, okay.
that wasn't the
I
point of
hope that
this.
works. I hope it works out for you. But dude, it was a month later, and I got a Facebook invite to a grand opening to a brand new gym.
Wow, that he opened up.
And dude, I was the first one there, and I'm gonna tell you, it brought tears to my eyes. I walked in that room, and it was just like, dude,
That's
you
awesome.
did it.
That's awesome. That's
Like,
awesome.
you stopped being miserable, and look at this. You're owning a gym.
Yeah.
So, anyway, that's what they can expect. They can expect to be transformed.
Right. So
But
everybody,
transformed, not
everybody that comes through with you is going to open up their own business in a month.
exactly. No,
Awesome.
no, they're not all going to open their own business in a month.
No, but
Because, dude, if I had to open a gym next month, it's not going to be something that's from my heart.
right. So that sounds awesome. Again, when I went through it, I really felt empowered. And it was just a one time thing, and you reached out to me. I can only imagine how it would impact my life if you and I were kind of ongoing. So
Right.
I definitely recommend anybody who is even just kind of looking for their purpose, who has taken every assessment out there and hasn't taken a step
Hasn't found
towards
it.
or hasn't taken those action steps towards and maybe needs to reinforce what they think their purpose is. I highly recommend that they reach out to you and that they go through this exercise and go through some of it, because to me it's one of the simplest ones that like you said, keep it simple, right? And you did an amazing job just in our, I think we spoke for like about an hour. So again, guys, reach out to Bruce and have a conversation with him. Worst case scenario, you're going to feel amazing when you're done. I think that's the worst case scenario.
Hey there, and sorry for this brief interruption. I want to say thank you for tuning into this podcast, and I hope that you're truly enjoying the guests that I have on today. I also want to make sure that you are aware that Fatherhood for the Rest of Us offers personal one-on-one coaching. If you are a father out there who's been afraid or don't know what the next step is to take for you and your ideal version of life, reach out to me. Let's have the conversation. We'll see if you and I are a good fit. And if you are, I just want to help you. I want to serve you and get you to where you want to go, right? I'm not trying to get you from A to Z. I just need to help you to get to your next step. And if I can help you do that, man, it's going to be amazing. And you'll see that you'll be up and running after those first couple of steps. If you are ready to take that next step, then head on over to reconstruct.brandonhanley.com and pick a time. There's a few Pines hostels available. If you don't find something that meets your timeline, reach out to me via email, brandon@fatherhoodfortherestofus.com, and let's have that conversation. We'll see if it's a good fit. I want to help you get to the level that you want to get to.
All right.
So, I love to talk about fatherhood.
Okay.
And I'm curious, what does that mean to you? Fatherhood, what does that mean to you?
I think it means teaching your kids the best parts of them, and then giving them what they need to be able to use those when they leave your home.
Okay. Yeah. I like that. It's like when, we get to coach them up, right?
That's
yeah. And I know that one of the things, how does that look like for you when you're coaching, or your scenario for like your 7-year-old maybe?
Well, in what way?
Like how's like how you kind of giving him what he needs to make it forward?
Okay. Okay. So for my kids, I know, we have anywhere between 15 and 9 years of experience with these. I've my oldest son is 15, my daughter is 13, and my youngest is 9.
Okay.
And well, first of all, I know what their purpose is, and so as they'll come to me and say, "Hey, what do you think? Do you think I'd be a good archaeologist?" Dude, you're a total people person. You know that archaeologists, like, they're in the dirt digging, often by themselves all day.
Right.
and you hate dirt. Would you be a good archaeologist? Probably not. I mean, now my oldest son has just kind of come to terms with where he wants to be. He really has a heart for justice, but it's from when I say a heart for justice, I mean it's not just judgment. It's a place of um, acceptance and letting people not feel judged.
Okay.
And and we were, well, I'll tell you, we were homeschooling our kids, and which is, it's been the best education for them, but we've really had to balance. So with the, in light of where you want to be in your future, is this the best path for you? You know, is the best education perhaps the best for your future? And we can determine it's not.
Okay.
He wants to be an attorney, and there's not many mock trial opportunities if you're homeschooled.
Hmm.
So it's just being observant and empowering him to go be who he, honestly, to be most authentically who he is.
Okay.
Um, and I mean, it takes dedicated time with each kid, you know, so that my kids are getting the best of me.
Right.
And so for me, that looks like bedtime. You know, bedtime is sort of sacred. No kid goes to bed, you know, without a parent sitting on the bed and talking with them and processing their day. And I'm going to tell you, that place has fostered the best conversations I've had with each of my kids.
Okay.
Because they know that if they need alone time with dad, you know, we have 3 kids and a busy life.
Sure.
If they need alone time with dad, that's when they can have it. So
Okay.
it's not just, oh gosh, I need to talk to you, dad. It's okay. Listen, if you need to have a funny conversation, we're having dinner right now. That's great.
Right.
We can have a funny conversation. But if you need to really connect with me, then hey, 9 o'clock tonight, I'm all yours.
Okay.
And then as they've grown, you know, I'm going to tell you, I've had some with my daughter. I've had some conversations that have made me uncomfortable,
Hmm.
but just things that I'm floored with her level of trust of me, that she has honored me by being able to talk through.
Yeah, that's great.
And it's because I'm available, and we've made that a priority for us. So
No,
I don't know if that
congratulations.
answered your
No,
question.
that's all. That's perfect. That's perfect. I mean, that is absolutely perfect. That spoke to your answer very well.
Okay.
And I love that you know, you're taking that time. They know that they've got it. They know that that conversation is going to be without judgment, from the sounds of it, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And it comes from a place of trust, and that you're all there, right? You're 100% present in that moment, and
Yeah.
that's great.
You know, and that's to say, because we cannot all be 100% present all the time,
Right
you know,
now, so, geez,
uh,
no, yeah,
right? I mean,
it,
but knowing that they have an outlet, so
right,
that, you know, this is when I'm going to get 100% of his attention,
right,
and
yeah,
knowing that's available.
yeah, that's awesome.
You know, there's one thing that I kind of want to talk about, just from my perspective as a therapist.
Do it.
Okay. Um, we'll get a kid, you know, let's say when they're your kids' age, okay,
Uh,
and we'll see either they've been bullied, or there's some situation that we're wanting to show them how to walk through. Typically, as parents, what we'll do is we'll say, okay, here's what you do. The next time this kid comes up to you, you're going to say, leave me alone. Okay. That was my kid therapy voice. Okay. um,
I can see why you're so
I
good at
just
what you
realized I
do.
did that on a podcast. That's pretty awesome.
It's going out to the world.
It's out there. There's no getting it back. Okay. So, but that's what we'll do. Right. And that's the equivalent. Now, I was telling you, my dad's an engineer. I'm a therapist, right? There's not a lot of, there's not a lot of technical skills that he and I have in common.
That's funny.
And he tries to talk about his work, and it's just like, okay, this is so over my head, you know.
Right.
And then this machine that I invented, okay, good, dirt drilling, okay. But that's what our kids hear when we try and tell them, this is what you need to tell this person.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if I could give anyone a tool for how to communicate to a 7-year-old or a 5-year-old, or I mean, if the kid isn't getting it, they need you to show them.
Okay.
And so don't be afraid to pull out some Lego figures or some Barbies. Okay. If you're talking to your, you know what I'm saying? You got to speak their language,
Right.
and show them, this is how this conversation could look like.
Right.
So here's your little minifigure. Here's my little minifigure. Okay. This person's going to come up and they're going to say, "You're stupid." Okay, so what are you going to do when they do that? And then they get to practice it
Right.
practically. Developmentally, we call it concretely, in a way that they can see it and grasp it.
Okay.
And that speaks their little language in a way that they're able to repeat it.
Okay.
If you just say, "This is what you need to say," again, it's just like that engineering conversation with my dad. I don't get it.
Rocks, dirt, drills.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
I love that too. And but that's so true, right? And I think that carries on in a lot of other different places. But that's a great example. I appreciate that. I'm definitely going to be able to use that. And I know that the guys in the fatherhood and women, anybody who listens to the show will be able to pick up on that. What speaking of your father, what is something what was that relationship like? You and your father growing up.
Wow. Okay. My dad and I are very different. Okay. You know what? Here's how I'll answer that question. My dad and I are very different. He's an engineer,
Mm-hmm.
but he taught me how to do play therapy. He
Okay.
had no idea that's what he was doing. But now, and he's an engineer. Okay. So you can imagine a creative, inventive individual playing Legos.
Right.
Like, that dude could lay it down. Okay. I would build a spaceship and it would be mostly flat with wings on the side, and maybe some bullets for effect.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
He would build this and he would do it with me. Okay.
Right.
So we would build this massive machine, and he taught me how to take a rubber band and put it on the outside of two different pieces, and then put a piece on the top and a piece on the bottom to stabilize it. And you could use it to shoot Legos across the room. And but in that moment, I'm not that moment, but those moments of getting on the ground and playing Legos with me, when I went to do therapy for the very first time, I took out Legos.
Okay.
Because it's what my dad had taught me to do.
Right.
So even though he was an engineer, he gave me access to who he was.
Right. That's
and
great.
and he made his strengths part of how we would interact. And I think it's important that we did that over Legos.
Hey, look, I mean, it's definitely carried forth. Usually that's my next question is what is something that you want to carry forward that your dad had given you? And it sounds like that part is what you have taken forward.
It's time. Yeah.
Time. Okay.
It's time. It's time and wisdom.
Mm-hmm.
I had another grandpa of mine. Yeah, I only have two, but my other grandpa passed away early last year.
Okay.
And we knew that he was going. So he had a few months, and it was a heart condition that was every day, it took another little piece of him.
Right.
And I made it part of my week to be able to stop in and see him and just spend time.
Okay.
And the more that progressed, the more family, started surrounding us in our time together. And I was just really impressed by the level of love that he had for every one of his kids and his grandkids and his great grandkids. I mean, when I walked into the hospital at the onset of those 3 months, the first thing he said to me was, "Dude, I'm so glad to see you, but when do I get to see your kids?"
Oh, okay.
Dude, that's how I'm going out. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I want to be 90 years old and my great grandkids know who I am.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Like Papa or great grandpa Bruce or whatever they're going to call me.
Sure.
They always make up their names, but I want to be imparting love to my family all the way to the end.
Perfect. No, that's great.
Yeah.
I love that. I'm always looking out for new materials to read myself or to share with the audience. What was one of the more impactful books that you've read as it relates to raising children?
I'm going to be honest with you. It's difficult to find really, really good, helpful strategies. I did some work in Africa, and they asked me the same question.
Okay.
Because you can only come here for a little while. We need something that you can leave with us.
Right.
And so I asked every therapist friend of mine, what's a good book? I would suggest that as from from a therapeutic perspective, what is the most helpful for families
Right.
is parenting with love and logic.
Okay.
Have you heard of
I've
that?
got it. I've got it busted open, it seems.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you a story from the book.
Okay.
See, it's the whole idea of discipline versus punishment,
Mhm.
and I don't think they call it those things in the book,
Right.
but they demonstrate those things in the book.
Okay.
So there's two teenagers that are arguing back and forth in the car, and I mean it's just to the point where the parents are like, ah,
Right. Right. Yeah.
and
I'm
so
familiar.
they're 4 blocks from home, and the dad pulls over and says, "I have great news for you guys.
Uh-huh.
Your mom and I are going to have a peaceful 4 blocks drive home because you and your brother are going to be walking." That's the idea of natural
Right.
consequences.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So because you are unable to argue, and I guess that's the same thing, with the sleeping bag, because you're unable to figure this out yourselves. I
Yeah.
have great news. The family is going to have peace because the sleeping bag is going away.
That's great. That's great.
Yeah.
Great recommendation. Like I said, I've got it. Geez, you know how I'm sure you know how it is. Like the book list just grows and
Dude, it
grows.
just keeps growing. It
It
just keeps
grows.
growing.
And I mean, and one of the fun things for me, anyways, with doing the podcast is that I actually have to read other book. I read most when somebody has a book, I read their
Hmm.
book, and so and just so that I I think that's appropriate, right?
Yeah.
I think so. I think it's the right move. But
Right,
that kind of,
exactly.
but sometimes that shoves my list back a little bit, or maybe it even has it changes the trajectory of where I go next,
Hmm.
depending on the conversations and what I find in that book. For
Hmm.
example, one of the books I read recently, Essentialism. But was it Greg McKeown or whatever?
Okay.
In that book, he lists like he goes, one of the things that you should do often is read timeless classics, right? Such as the Bible, the Torah, Bhagavad Gita, or something like that, just for a little bit every day. And
Yeah.
and that I was like, you know what, that sounds great. And so every morning I read these days. I read the Bhagavad Gita, which I loved. I was like, this is awesome.
Hmm.
And then I'll spend like maybe I read a chapter of Epictetus. I'm reading Epictetus right now, Stoicism, Epictetus, just a little bit every day. And so, but that just gives you an example of how the trajectory gets changed based on something else that you find out there, right? But
Yeah.
parenting with love and logic, I've got it. It's on my before the end of the year list.
Okay.
Before the end of the year list. I appreciate that recommendation. So, what would you thank your children for at this point right now? What would you like to thank your children for if they pick this up? What would you say thanks to them for?
Um, Dude, okay. Um, I would thank Caleb for being the fun one. I would thank Glory for valuing authentic relationships. And I would thank Solomon for his acceptance and the wisdom that he walks in every day.
Love it, love it. Perfect, perfect.
Hmm.
What do you think there's anything we didn't really touch on that you want to touch on in this conversation?
You know what? You hit on the fear bears. I think I think that's an important topic.
Sure.
Okay, because if we're in purpose,
Uh-huh.
we're in love.
Okay.
If we're in the opposite of our purpose, we're in fear. And that can look 3 different things. And that's the same for us and for our kids.
Okay.
So we have sleepy bear, angry bear, and busy bear.
Right.
So sleepy bear that's when we disengage. That's when we pull out. Okay. That's when we're on our phone. That's when we're drinking excessively. That's when we're, it can look like anything like that causes us to be alone. Okay. There's angry bear, which is the opposite of that. Instead of pulling away, it's lashing out.
Okay.
So, and that looks like anything from from yelling out of anger, okay, to shooting somebody, okay, to assault, right?
Right.
Okay, that's
Right.
angry
Right.
bear.
Yeah.
And then we have busy bear, and busy bear is the one that always looks the healthiest. But
Right.
busy bear is where, I'll use you for example, I feel insignificant, so therefore I'm going to help you and help you and help you until you stop making me feel insignificant.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
But all of those things are out of fear.
Okay.
So
Wow.
if I'm spending 6 hours a day on a video game on my phone, if I am yelling at anyone that comes near me, or if I am helping and helping and helping so that they can stop making me feel insignificant, all of those things are at their root. Those are out of punishment.
Huh.
I am pulling away because look what you made me do.
Right.
I am
Okay.
yelling at you because look at what you made me do. I am being helpful to you because look at what you made me
Interesting.
do. Yeah.
Huh.
See, if you're living authentically,
hmm
and that means that you're living your purpose regardless of what other people are doing, then you are what I would call grounded
Okay.
or rooted. I mean, if you can picture an oak tree in the middle of a hurricane,
Right.
if it's deeply rooted, it's not going anywhere.
Right.
Its leaves are going to get tousled, okay? But it's not going anywhere because its roots are deeper than hurricane force winds.
Right.
And that at its core is what fire teaches us: is we don't have to disengage, we don't have to be angry, we don't have to go make other people do something, because we are rooted and grounded in authenticity. We are rooted and grounded in love. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. I love
Yeah.
that. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Watch out for that second fear bear, guys.
That angry one?
That angry one. Watch out for that one. Watch out for that one. No lashing out. So awesome. I want to say thanks again. Where can people reach out to you, Bruce? Where?
All right. Well, there's a website. It is purposefire.org.
Mm-hmm.
That's our website, and that's gonna, honestly, if you go there, that connects you to Facebook, that connects you to me personally. I also have a team of people that write articles on purpose.
Okay.
And sort of talk about the principles that we've talked about today, but kind of really break them out.
Okay.
And I mean, if you want to connect with me, that's how you do it.
Awesome. Awesome. All right, Bruce. I want to say thanks again for waking up at 6 a.m. to come on to be with Fatherhood for the rest of us.
Dude, I have no problem waking up at 6 a.m., but 6 a.m. on Sunday, dude, we're pushing it.
Come on now. Come on. Life's worth living. Wake up.
All right.